Do you know the most commonly used types of agriculture, such as, for example, intensive and extensive, plantation, family, subsistence, shifting and gardening agriculture? Well, in this video, we're going to talk about them in that Geo-Illustrata style you already know, straight to the point and with lots of visuals. Who wants to understand all of this? Then let's get to the video. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Paolo, your geography teacher. As always, it's an honor to have you here with me on Geo-Illustrata. And in today's video, agricultural production systems, or also types of agriculture, as they're known. Well, first of all, let's introduce this topic by talking about Brazil's land ownership structure, which basically refers to the distribution of land in the country. And about this, you need to know that in Brazil, there is a high concentration of land ownership, or concentrated land ownership. As we can see in this IBGE chart, which relates the number of establishments to their respective area. So in this relationship between area and establishments, we can see that 81.4% of the establishments have an area of up to 50 hectares, while only 0.3% of rural establishments in Brazil have an area greater than 2,500 hectares, which reflects the concentration of land ownership that I mentioned earlier. And this is important because in Brazil, we have different models of agricultural production, which are mainly related to the size of the property, with the level of technology used, with the type of labor employed, whether it is skilled or not, with productivity goals, as well as the impacts it causes on the environment. All right, with that introduction done, let's now move on to the agricultural systems themselves. And it's essential for us to start by differentiating intensive systems from extensive ones. I'm sure you've already heard about this at school, haven't you? So the intensive system, notice the word intensive. Intensity refers to high productivity. So within the intensive system, there's also a lot of use of technology, advanced machinery, fertilizers, pesticides, genetically modified seeds, right? Transgenic seeds. This system also uses highly qualified labor and focuses on high productivity, even in limited areas. On the other hand, the extensive system is the opposite. Look at the word again, extensive. What does it refer to? Extent. In this system, there is less use of technology and more use of traditional techniques. Generally, the areas are larger, but the production is lower. So there is less production per hectare. Because of the low use of technology, this system will also depend more on natural conditions, such as fertile soil and rain, even the slope of the land, right? So in short, I would say that the difference between the intensive and extensive systems is the use of an investment in technology, all right? Now let's move on to the plantation system. Well, this one, you definitely know it was widely used during Brazil's colonial period, right? And it is characterized by the trio, slave labor, monoculture, and large estates. In other words, large land properties and a focus on production. The focus on just one type of crop, right? Which could be coffee, soybeans, wheat, among others. Even today, this system still exists, but obviously slave labor no longer exists. However, working conditions are still generally not that good for the worker, right? With long working hours, often degrading conditions and so on. And the focus here is high productivity, mainly for export. All right, now let's talk about family farming, which is another very important type here in our country. And some of its main characteristics are, first of all, small properties. So they don't work on large estates. The second aspect is that production is mainly aimed at consumption. However, they also sell a lot of what they produce, right? Mainly to supply local markets. Besides that, in family farming, there is little or no use of pesticides, the well-known agrochemicals. So production is mainly geared toward organic products. And an interesting fact about family farming is that it is one of the main sources of the food that actually ends up on our plates, right? Like leafy greens, various vegetables, and organic rice is another major highlight. And the MST, right, the Landless Workers Movement, is the main producer of organic rice here in our country. While we're on the topic of family farming, let's talk about subsistence farming, which has many similarities. But what is subsistence? The word subsistence refers to supporting oneself, right? Of one's own life, of one's own family, and subsistence farming has to do with that. Production mainly for one's own consumption, And this type of activity also won't have much technology, and it will take place on small properties, just like family farming mentioned earlier. And as an activity opposite to these two, we have commercial farming or corporate agriculture. And here, as the name itself suggests, the main goal is profit. This type of agriculture will have high productivity, which serves both to supply the domestic market and also the foreign market, right? Activities for export. So, to meet all this demand, the use of advanced technologies is necessary, like machinery, inputs, soil treatment, as well as genetically modified seeds. And when it comes to labor, there is also extensive use of skilled labor, such as agronomists, agricultural technicians, among others. So, in this type of activity, there is a high investment in technology to boost productivity. Well, shifting agriculture, as the name itself suggests, what does itinerant mean, right? It's something that is constantly changing location, like that traveling circus that comes to your city and after 2 months leaves for another place. So the dynamic of this type of activity is basically like that. I farm in one place. I farm. Then as soon as the soil is depleted, I move and repeat this cycle in a new place. And within this type of agriculture, there is a practice that is very harmful to the environment, which is burning. They are used both to clear the land and to fertilize it. In other words, the ashes from the burned organic matter serve as fertilizer for that soil. However, it's not a sustainable practice, right? And it causes environmental problems such as erosion, sandification, and also desertification of the soil. In fact, this is a practice used in the Sahel region, which is the transition zone of the Sahara Desert. This has even contributed to the expansion of the desert area itself, increasing desertification in the Sahel. Now, moving on to the last type of agriculture, which is gardening. And I want to thank you in advance for making it this far, all right? So, what is gardening agriculture? It's a type of agriculture that also mainly serves subsistence, right? High consumption. However, it's widely used for domestic supply. Sales, right? On a local scale, and they use small areas with little use of technology. However, even so, they use small areas. Production is intensive because it requires a lot of care throughout the entire cultivation process. This type of agriculture is widely used in some Asian countries, such as India and Japan, for example, and especially in the planting and cultivation of rice. And a striking feature of intensive small plot farming is also the use of the area's own terrain for cultivation. So here the terracing technique is widely used. Have you heard of it? It's that construction of step-like structures on the land, which besides maximizing production, also prevents other problems, like soil erosion, for example. And speaking of erosion, I'm leaving a video about soil erosion on your screen, and another one about types of soil, which will complement what you saw in this video here. So thank you for staying with me until now. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment to support the channel. See you next time. Bye-bye. Take care.